Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment, where we continue to discover what makes a bestseller and inspire you to start, finish and publish your book. I'm Mark Stay.
And I'm Mark DeVoe, and we'd like to say a very, very big thank you to all of you for joining us again this week, and especially to our new patrons this week, to Ollie and Joe. Yes, we're on first name terms only with those folks. Thank you so much, Ollie and Joe, for signing up to Patreon. And if you would like to join and become super supporters of this podcast, please pop along to bestsellerexperiment.com/support for loads of goodies. You know what they all are. We tell you every week. Go check it out. Amazing stuff. Mr. Stay. What an exciting week. I hear Germanic tones in the air this week.
Yeah, well, just today, it's just arrived. I've got the German paperback edition of Geisterzauber, so Ghost Magic, which is the Ghost of Ivy Barn in German, because the other ones were the Rebenzauber, which is crow magic, Nachtzauber, night magic, and Geisterzauber. I know you speak German, so. But part of the fun, first of all, I love the covers, and the covers all look great together. You can't beat a skull motif. But what I love about these is just opening them at a random page and trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
Are you searching for like one word that gives you a clue that you're like, I think I know what that bit is. I love that. You're the author of the book. This is brilliant. Have you got an example for me?
Well, I've discovered that there's no German translation for spotted dick.
Because probably just as well, actually.
There's a reference for listeners outside the UK. Spotted dick is what would you say? It's like a steamed pudding.
Definitely not an ailment.
Definitely not an ailment. It's a steamed pudding that is delicious with custard, and it's perfect kind of winter food, winter comfort food. So yeah, you've got here.
Go on, read me the line. I want to hear it.
Oh, there's a really long word at the beginning.
Go on, go for it. Just
Wahrscheinlich sollte ich auch die Zeit mit Mums Rezept für Spotted Dick Rauschenwein. Sie wird nicht wollen, dass Feind bekommt. How did I do?
I think you did brilliant. And you know what? I honestly think you missed a trick, because you should have done the audiobook as well, because I think it would sell in droves. Oh, it's brilliant.
So
I love it.
Great.
My mum will be like, my mum's a German teacher, and she does listen to the podcast. Hello, Mum. She'll give us a written response, no doubt.
I apologise to the great nation of Germany for ruining your language.
German is a hard language to, I think for us Brits particularly, it's a hard language for us to grasp in terms of the pronunciation. I know that because my mum was always telling me every single word that I'd say, like I would be getting it slightly wrong, but it's brilliant. It's just it sounds very suspenseful, whatever you just read there. And even though I do speak a bit of German, it's something about a mum's recipe for spotted dick.
Yes. Thrilling stuff.
Okay, last week we were talking about milestones.
Yes.
We were talking about these kind of like the traffic code. Anyone listened to last week? If you didn't listen to it, it was very, very funny. Have a listen back. But this week, again, another example of such a brilliant milestone. It's one thing to get a book out there. I mean, that's huge. But how brilliant is it to get a book translated in a foreign language? That's just fantastic. And to have written that book and to be looking at it and not have a clue what's going on. I mean, I always wonder, April Fool's Day jokes from translators, like the stuff that they could get away with that you would never know about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
interesting because I'll be honest, they haven't been in touch. The translators just got on with it. So I don't know,
because I assumed that there'd be pages and pages of questions of just asking for clarification on certain.
Well, especially some of the weird stuff I put in there. But so there's one thing I did notice was that without giving any spoilers, there's a secret project in this, and someone calls it Operation Whirligig, and Whirligig. There's no translation set. So they've called it in here Operation Propeller. So, so they're making choices. They're just not consulting me on it. But I do know that I remember talking to Joanne Harris about this. And Joanne Harris, I think because she's a French speaker as well, took great interest in her, takes great interest in her translations, and does have, a long conversation. I know that whenever we've translated stuff, so The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, who's a Spanish author, and he's Spanish, but he speaks very good English as well. And I know that we got Anthea Bell to translate that. And Anthea Bell will be familiar to many, many readers of Asterix. because she translated Asterix with Derek Hockridge. And the pair of them would take the kind of, because Asterix, will have jokes that in French that just don't translate into English. So they would put English puns and jokes into them as well. There's tons of stuff, and they change character names as well. So there's tons of stuff in the English translations of Asterix books that won't be in the original French. So I've no idea if that's what's going on in here. So if anyone's read both, let me know. It'd be absolutely
interesting, actually. Yeah, it'd be fascinating to do that. Well, that's absolutely brilliant. Congratulations! And you said it's out today in stores around Germany.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, good luck. I hope it. And this is the third one that's been released in Germany.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Fantastic news. Absolutely brilliant. And this week as well, Mark, I mean, if people have been like, hibernating for the entire duration of winter, and lucky you if you have, because man, I'd love to have done that. Just come out, crawling out from under the duvet around March time. But if you obviously listen to the last few weeks, we've been talking a lot about Mark's movie, but it's officially out worldwide streaming. Is that correct? Like this?
Yeah,
week,
it should be by the time this podcast goes live. It should be on video on demand on Apple and Amazon and wherever you get your digital movies from to rent. So finally available to rent. And it's interesting, since it's been available to rent, I've been getting a lot more comments and feedback and stuff like that. So definitely getting a lot more eyes on it, which is great.
We were chatting about doing something before the show, weren't we? Should we give people a little teaser about what we're planning? Yeah,
well, I'd like to do a live stream spoiler special. So we can, and I'm gonna. Stay tuned. Watch this channel. Stay tuned to this channel. We'll come up with some more details soon. But
definitely,
it's one of these things where I think we'll get patrons and academics be able to send in questions beforehand and stuff, and then we'll So we're just gonna check people's diaries and things. And
do you know it's going to be a bit like the first season, Mark, where I come on and ask all the dumb and daft questions. I'm really looking forward to it. I have lots of questions.
I'll bet you have. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, I've got to say, I'm really, really excited to dive into our interview this week, because this is one of those interviews that stands alone, doesn't it? From all of
We've never had anything like it, have we?
Many hundreds of interviews over the years. This is a complete standalone. And so, Mark, I'm just going to let you introduce our incredible guest this week.
Well, this is Derek and Dave Philpott. We've got Dave today. They've been writing strange letters to famous musicians for 10 years now and getting even stranger replies back. Their first book, Dear Mr. Kershaw, and that's Nick Kershaw to you and me, became a cult smash hit. And the follow-up, Dear Mr. Popstar, was released by Unbound to similar acclaim. And they've now got a new book, Grammar Free in the UK. Now, you've got to say that in a certain way, so it sounds like Anarchy in the UK, the Sex Pistols song. So Grammar Free in the UK, which is a punk edition in the same series. And this one is raising money for Crisis, which is a homeless shelter. And if you want to help out with that, we're going to have links in the show notes. So me and Dave, we discuss how to wrangle pop stars, how to write in character and still stay authentic, and quoting lyrics and how they got away with it.
Brilliant. You're in for a treat, folks. Sit back and enjoy this amazing and very, very funny interview with Mark chatting with the lovely Dave Philpott.
Dave Philpott, welcome to the Bestseller Experiment. How are you today, sir?
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, Mr. Stake. Thank you so much for the invite. How are you?
I'm very good indeed. Thanks for asking. And I knew about these books. I had little idea of the work that's gone into them, to be honest. And the more I sort of dig into it, the more amazing they are. But you got a new one, Grammar Free in the UK. Tell us about Grammar Free in the UK.
Grammar Free in the UK was something that I put together in lockdown. I'm a care home singer. So like every other musician, no matter what rung of the ladder they're on, we went from a full diary to nothing within the space of like 2 days. Okay. Yeah. So initially panicking, I thought, well, what can I do with my time? So what I decided to do was just write letters to punks, because we've always got on with the punks. They're very intelligent and very, very funny people. The initial idea was simply just to write letters to punks, get a few replies in, put them on Facebook, free, Grammar Free in the UK, and just maybe draw attention to the first to the first couple of books. That's all it was supposed to be, Mark. End of. Then what we? But we started to get quality. The quality was so good of the replies we were getting that Dick Lucas from Subhumans said to me, these can't stay on Facebook, because a lot of punks don't do Facebook. So you've got to publish. So I thought, oh God, here we go again. But I didn't want to go down the traditional publisher route, and I thought, I'll probably self-pub it. But then I spoke to an entrepreneur who was a massive fan of what we do, and he went, "Yeah, I'll pay for it." So he bankrolled the whole thing. He did everything. And so we had an accidental book out. So it was one of those positive things that come out of lockdown. But because I hadn't put a penny into it, and because of the efforts that the punks had put in, I thought, you know what? Clive's bankrolled us to the tune of like $5,000 here.
Wow.
Oh yeah. So let's just give some money back. I don't feel guilt. I don't feel safe, or don't feel right taking the money for this. So let's just build a charity element in there, so that for every copy that we sell, we can bung a wedge to crisis. We decided, because homelessness is something which is the punks are very sort of very very engaged with. So that's it. Really, it was just a glorious accident.
Wonderful stuff. And Crisis is charity very close to my heart as well. It does amazing work. And punks, this is the thing. I was talking to a writing friend of mine recently, because we were talking about the kind of things that we write now, and you have a kind of image of your head of people in their 50s and 60s, but our punks are in their 50s and 60s now. These great rebels of the 70s, they're pensioners now, aren't they? I mean, this is the...
Well, I can actually take that a step further and say that my job, as I think I'm a care home singer. Okay, yeah. Now, in our day, or 20 years ago, your image of a care home is to go in there and think of Knees Up Mother Brown and, Hey Sarah Sarah. No, now they want T-Rex, Bowie, Johnny Cash, and as we go on, and I do get requests for the Clash and the Pistols. So that's of course. If you think about it, Mark, these people, they're in their 80s now. That what I always say is nobody stops listening to music when they're 15. So these are the artists I've been asked for now. I'm doing like Cockney Rebel, T-Rex. It's just the way. So yes.
I love it. I love it.
It's great.
I mean, I live in Herne Bay, which is retirement home central. Okay, so I'm just waiting for the day when I walk past a door and hear Anarchy in the UK coming out of a window from a care home. I can't wait.
It's going to happen, mate. It's going to happen within our lifetime, obviously. Yeah.
This is an amazing project, and folks, we're going to put a link in the show notes so you can check this out and order a copy and do some good in the world and have a really good laugh as well. You've got an amazing lineup. You've got people from the Vibrators, you got Cock Sparrow, Cockney Rejects, Vice Squad, Sham 69. I mean, this is how do you get in touch with these people? How do you get the ball rolling?
Well, this leads on to the original project as well. This was originally just a bunch of very silly letters hanging in cyberspace with no responses, and we built up this like rabid Facebook community. Only like a couple of hundred people. That's all it was, and we didn't have an inkling that the things were going to be replied to. It was just a bit of fun. And then one day, one of our Facebook fans said, "You know what? Peter Hamill's read your site and he would be receptive to an approach." So, and then it snowballed, because I thought, if this is interactive and we can get replies back, God, no one's ever done that before. That's just crazy. So the answer to your question is, once I got the idea of getting replies, I just wrote a slew of emails to management companies, management of the artists, obviously nothing back at all. So I thought, well, that's the end of that. But then we were getting people were saying, look, I know the bass tech from this band, or I know the hairdresser who does this guy's hair, or my cousin's the roadie. And we went through the back door of the business, and we got replies through our Facebook community. Then it snowballed again. And once we got a slew of replies under our belt, then like I don't know, Howard Jones would get an email from us, because they're all teed up, Mark. We tell them it's a joke. You know, I don't think it's fair to trick them. So Howard Jones will come back and say, well, actually, Nick Kershaw's already told me about you. So, so yeah. And so then the artists were referring other artists to us. So it was a complete accident. And I spoke to a magazine editor about this a couple of years ago, and she said, if you were to if a commissioning editor said to me, you've got to get 300 silly replies in from pop stars for nothing, it's not going to happen.
Well, this is it. Let's rewind a bit. Let's give this a bit of context, because this is what's so amazing about this. So your first book was Dear Mr. Kershaw, followed up by Dear Mr. Popstar, and then we got Grammar Free in the UK. And the format is essentially similar, where you look at the lyrics of these songs or look at an aspect of the song or whatever, and you write in character to the pop star, pointing out some little foible in the lyrics. And then, as you say, you've got a genuine reply from the pop star. And as you say, because as I understand it, Dear Mr. Kershaw got rejections, but again, as you say, any publisher thinking, hang on, the success of this project relies on you getting all these replies. And also the fact that they're in on the joke, and the fact that the quality of the replies are so good. And listeners, they are so good. The replies are just heartwarming and funny, and really, they're all in on it. I was reading the All About Eve one from Julianne Regan, who's, it's so well done. It is just amazing. So take us back to the very, very, very beginning, how this evolved, and how Dear Mr. Kershaw became a book.
It was basically me and my friend I was in a band with and our dads. And we decided, look, we're both obsessed with music. That's our entire life.
Right.
So why don't we play songs to our dads who have got no reverence, no idea about music? And that way they don't know if it's recorded by a band down in the shed or a band playing in the stadium, where you or I would listen to Duran Duran and go, that's probably our greatest pop band export of the 80s. We would listen to it and we'd have all these preconceptions, and we go, Hungry Like the Wolf, what a brilliant song. My dad wouldn't know it's Duran Duran, and he would say, why are you isolating starvation to wild dogs? Why can't it be starving like the starling, or famished like the ferret, or peckish like the panda? Or we'd say, I see a red dot and I want to paint it black. And he did, well, your Uncle Len tried that and he didn't put a proper undercut on it. It turned out purple. That's it. That's how it started. Now, my dad's in his 80s now, so I've taken over it. For the past sort of 6 or 7 years, I've been channeling him and pretending that I've got no idea of it. But that's the genesis. That's how it started. It was a complete... It was just stupid. We just thought it was really funny, and that's it. And now it's blown up to what it is now. But that's the genesis of it. Pardon the pun.
Okay.
Although we do have Steve Hackett in the new book.
So when did you know you had a book? When did the point come when you thought, okay, we've got enough here for a book? And how did you go about getting it published?
I looked at the website one day and I thought we got 40 replies here.
Yeah.
And at that point, we were sort of one of the best kept secrets in musical comedy, because you had to find it to know it was there.
Yeah.
But I thought, this is too good. This is too good to stay online. So first thing I did, because it was respectful, I wrote to all of the artists, individual emails, and said, look, this is just early days, but if we did publish, and they just bit our hands off, because they said, of course you can. And I spoke to Owen Paul about this as our book launch, and he said, if you'd have been journalists, we'd have smelt you. Okay, the fact that you are two guys in your front room, that's why we love it. Okay, right. So I thought, okay, let's publish. So I thought I'll probably get a few more replies as I'm going down the publishing route, but nobody wanted it, Mark. I don't to this day know why. And one day, because my dad is naive and doesn't understand the internet properly, he said to me one day, how many friends have you got on Facebook? I said, I think about 2,000 or 3,000, man. I think we've got 2,000 or 3,000. He goes, ask them for a tenner. And I went, Dad, I said, Dad, they're not really our friends. They're not our real friends. He goes, well, they say they're our friends. So, I went, stuff it, why not? So we just put a Kickstarter campaign together and we raised like 16 grand in 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we put it out. So that's how it started. And then we after that, publishers were interested.
Yes.
And then we got it pitched to Unbound, and they went, yeah, of course, we love it. And so that's how that's it's just an accident. That's what I love about it. You couldn't write down, I will do this and it will be this in 15 years time.
No, this is about, doing something out of a genuine passion, which those musicians picked up on. There's no cynicism in it. You're having a laugh. It's genuine. It's done out of love. And it's become, suddenly has the potential to be something amazing. And you went for it, which is what I love. Now, the only question I've got is, you're dealing with a lot of pop stars there. I guess they're used to doing interviews in magazines where people can run off with their quotes. But when it goes into a book, did they have to sort of give you clearance? Did they have to sign something to let you use their replies? Or was it all done on faith?
No, it's done on faith. I mean, the fact we've got an email exchange saying, yes, we give you permission. I was worried about quoting lyrics, but I spoke to this. Luckily, you see, the good thing about this project is that you never know who your friends are. I mean, I put a post up a few years ago saying, look, we're not sure about lyric use. And I got this email from this guy. He goes, oh, I'm a big fan. Turns out he was this top lawyer, so he was giving me advice that would have cost me like £300 an hour, and he said, under fair use, because you are taking the lyric and you are analysing it, you've got permission to do whatever you like. Okay, if you quote a lyric in isolation and you don't justify why it's there, you've got a problem. Okay,
right.
But if you say, dear Mr. Kershaw, no, wouldn't it be good to be in your shoes? No, it wouldn't, because I take a size 6. That is a justification for the use of the lyric.
Yeah, because you're not passing it off. You're not passing it off either as your own, and you're not sort of, or even saying this is vindicating my book. Because sometimes you look on writers' Facebook groups, and this is like the number one question, because they'll have read Stephen King, which has got Bruce Springsteen lyrics, and they go, why can't I do that? And it's like, well, Stephen King is probably mates with Bruce Springsteen, and he rang him up and asked him. Or back in the 80s, the music companies turned a blind eye to it because they were making a fortune on CDs. But of course, once that dried up, they go, how else can we make money? Okay, we're going to charge people for our lyrics. And it is a copyright infringement. And we always say to people, don't do it. But in this case, because it is technically non-fiction, I guess, and it's in the context of, as you say, analysing the lyrics and discussing them, it's perfectly justified. It's such a complicated area. But if you're writing fiction, don't do it. It's the short of it.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's worked. That's brilliant. And again, you've got, I guess if there were any problems, again, you've got a direct line to a lot of these artists in the first place, though. You could. Well,
you're on a sticky wicket there a little bit, because some of the time they're not the writer.
Of course. Yeah, that's true.
So it's because I do covers, cover versions, and obviously the artists say, well, I didn't write it, you can't blame me, and I go, yeah, but you recorded it, so therefore you are an accessory after the fact. But I cleared this with Unbound, because I was still concerned. I thought, if we're going with Unbound, this could be really big, so let's just make sure. And Unbound went, no, you are completely, this solicitor friend said, you're completely in the clear, because it's fair use.
Right.
You're saying this is the lyric and this is what I'm dissecting from this lyric.
Yeah.
So I say, dear Mr. Hopper, you say this and I say this in response, it's absolutely fine.
So after Dear Mr. Kershaw, which became this cult hit, you've got Dear Mr. Popstar. You're sort of at the foot of the mountain again. Was there any trepidation of going back into this? Were you thinking, can we do this twice? And what did you learn from the first book that you took over to the second book?
Well, the advantage of the first bit was, because we crowdfunded it, we used our fan base again, blessed them, and said, look, is anyone a proofreader? Any designers on our friends list? Where can any printers? So I went into it with that sum of money and I did it myself. Okay,
Right.
so when we went to Unbound, I was aware of what the process would be, but of course I had trepidation. I thought, are we going to be able to get another 100 replies or another 60 replies? But and it was hellish because I was crowdfunding at the same time as writing the book and getting pop stars to respond.
Yeah.
And our hit rate in those days, Mark, was only like you'd write 20 emails, and you get one response. Okay, even with that direct line from the roadies and the text, etc. Whereas now it's a lot higher. So looking back, I think I'd have probably crowdfunded it first and then written it, because doing those two things together was really stressful.
Yeah.
And you're saying to Ian Gillan, well, I think it's going to be published.
Right.
But we've got to raise the money, But then the artists were like putting it on their pages saying so and so is going to be in this book if it's published,
Right.
And so they were helping there as well.
Yeah. How were you breaking up your day? Were you sort of producing the book in the morning, crowdfunding in the afternoon, or was it a bit more chaotic?
You do it based on what emails coming in.
Right. Okay. And this one,
you can be creative and like, okay, an artist says just now got to write the letter, and then you're trying to raise the money in a different. You can't structure your day because it depends what's being fired at you.
And the second one, Dear Mr. Popstar, was that Unbound again, or were you doing that off your own back?
I did that through Unbound.
Right. Okay.
I did that through Unbound, and they gave us a fantastic book. It was a great journey, but I decided last year that I'd enjoyed the process of Grammar Free in the UK so much that I thought, I wonder if I can get the rights back, because we were still getting replies, even though there were no new books planned. We were still getting replies back from artists because they loved it. Okay, so at one point I thought, I've got 30 replies here doing nothing, from Spandau Ballet and from Frankie Goes to Hollywood and from Gloria to Cult, and they're not doing anything. So what if I get the rights back from Unbound, self-pub it and put this extra stuff in it?
Right.
And they very kindly reverted the rights to me back in November. So I've just done a tight edit, and that's how this. So this new edition of Dear Mr. Popstar literally has got 50% new content in it, but I've managed to get a lesser page count because I've just cut out our waffly bits and made it every So because we do go on a bit. So that's coming out hopefully next week, 1st of February, hopefully. Yeah.
Right. Brilliant. Now, you mentioned your dad, who was the inspiration for this and provides some of the funniest moments in all the books. How's he feel about this journey? How, and has he got a taste? Does he want more? I mean, what's it been like for him? Because this would have been completely unexpected for him, wouldn't it?
He understood what I was doing, but obviously when it starts with like a Facebook community of 100 people, it's just a private joke, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, he stepped out now because he's too old now. Okay, it's something that I've got to focus on myself now. But he got it, and what I do find really funny was one day he phoned me, says, "Oh, I've been looking at this pop group. Why should we do this?" I said, "If you've researched them, it's pointless.
Yeah,
okay, you've got to know nothing. Okay, so you've got to isolate it just on the lyrics. So, but he's intensely proud because he was a printer. He used to be a proofer.
Right.
Back in the day, before desktop come in. So he understands the process. I think it was harder to get a book published when my dad was a printer, though, Mark. That would have been in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Much harder. But that doesn't take away, the incredible achievement and what you guys did. So, and you're right. I guess once he's kind of wise to what's going on, it sort of, the spark is, this was, I mean, Dear Mr. Kershaw, Dear Mr. Popstar, Grammar Free, they feel like a moment in time, don't they? If he's wise to it, then you can't really go on with it, can you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's exactly right. As I said to him, he says to me, "Who's this by?" It doesn't matter. And I did a podcast yesterday for this American guy, and he said to me, "Are there any artists that you really are on your wish list?" And I said, it's not about the artist. It's all about the lyric.
Yeah.
It's only about the lyric. It doesn't, to a certain extent, it doesn't matter who's written it. We are the compliance department, as we say. We were internal audit. We're internal audit, and we found inconsistencies within your work, which needs to be rectified in the next 28 days.
Has this ruined music for you in a way? Are you constantly? Have you tuned your ear to lyrics?
I think it's ruined it for our fan base, because they go, thanks for that, I can never listen to that record the same way again. But a lot of our Facebook friends say, you know, we can't help it now. We listen to we listen to the radio, and a record comes on, and then we go, oh, dear Bon Jovi. They're doing it in their heads. So we changed it for everybody. Sorry.
I suppose
it doesn't go away.
This comes of being a generation that we had smash hits that used to publish the lyrics every week, you know, or every fortnight, whenever it came out. And then you try and figure out what Nick Kershaw was talking about. There's a tree by a river near a hole in the ground, you know.
Yeah, we've got that.
And also we had albums, gatefold albums that had the lyrics in them as well. So are you finding your readers reflect kind of, you know, this generation, this age group, or are younger readers discovering it as well?
No, funnily enough, again, I had this chat yesterday with this guy, and we don't attract any new contemporary artists to what we're doing, and we don't get leads for that because our fan base is of a certain age.
Right. Yeah.
We tend to get leads for 70s and 80s acts, but I like that, because when you're dealing with like 80s acts and 90s acts, they've had 30 or 40 years to live in their own skin and live with the song, and they're very relaxed with who they are. They're not worried about PR and how they're reflected, because they've already got existing fan bases. So I like the fact that we're dealing with work that's been in the public domain for 30 or 40 years, because those artists are so comfortable with who they are, and they're prepared to have a laugh at themselves. And Rupert Hine, who was at our book launch, who's sadly passed away now, said, what you've done is tapped in to this mischievous little side of every musician. We've all got it, but this gives us a chance to showcase it. And as I always say, if you love an artist and then you see that they get involved in this or something else that, you know, pokes fun at themselves, you're just going to like them even more, aren't you? Nobody loses in this, you know. It's just because Now,
you talked there about artists knowing themselves, be comfortable with themselves. And I introduced you as Dave Philpott. But people watching this on YouTube will see the name Dave Dawson down there. So who the hell am I talking to now?
Yeah, it is Dave Dawson. And the reason why we decided from day one to use pen names is because it is a character, you know, even though it's our thoughts, that what I always say, it's a mask. So where you and I, if we were writing under our own names, would get to a certain point and go, this is now utterly ridiculous. Okay. If you're using a pen name, that's your starting point to then take it to an infinitely stupid degree. Okay. And they are overblown versions of us. Okay. I always explain it to the artists and say, look, you know that guy that barges in backstage with a laminate and no one knows how he's got the laminate, and he starts spouting off to you about your own songs that you wrote. That's us. That's who we are. So just vent your spleen at that guy, because here we are. So the answer is, I'm so close to it that it's blurred, Mark, because I'm just proofreading this new book and I'll read bits in it and go, that actually happened, you know, because it's us. But we decided to use nom de plumes because it just gave us the scope just to be as stupid as we like. And it's like a brand name now, you know.
Brilliant.
Again, something that it was a complete accident. It was just done on day one. What should we call the website? I'll just call it this.
Right.
It's not going to go anywhere anyway. You know, this will fly for a couple of weeks. And then we're stuck with a name 15 years later.
You mentioned the person backstage with the laminate. I saw somewhere that you had a conversation with, is it Biff Bifford from the band Saxon? And he was talking about, tell us about that.
Incredible story. I got this from Kev Moore But I think it's in the public domain. Basically, Saxon wrote a song called "Princess of the Night," okay, which was about a steam train being decommissioned,
Right.
and this guy had apparently gone backstage and said to Biff Bifford, "I love that song you wrote about your girlfriend," and he went, "It's about a train," and the guy goes, "No, it isn't. No, it isn't." It's what I always say is that the song belongs to the artist until it's released, or when it's released, it's not theirs anymore. They can't control how it's interpreted. Some people take it personally. Some people, you get that in the care homes as well. You say, "Oh, don't do any Billy Fury." And I go, "Why not? He's brilliant." I go, "Yeah, but my husband ran off with somebody and that was her favourite singer."
Right?
So,
yeah.
you just can't control once a song's released how it's interpreted, and that's what we're poking a stick at.
Yes, yeah. My dad, when I was a baby, he had a bike accident and he was in hospital. And the number one hit at the time was "Don't Rock the Boat," and he can't hear it now. Don't rock the boat, rock the boat.
Yeah,
it just takes him back to being in hospital. It loathes it. Anyway, enough of that. What is coming next from you guys? Is there going to be more of this? You mentioned a new edition of Dear Mr. Popstar. We've got Grammar Free in the UK. Are you looking beyond that?
I don't know, because this is all organic and it grows exponentially by itself. I just never know what's going to come next. That Grammar Free book never should have happened.
Right.
It was just to draw attention to the first book, and then before we know it, we've got an entrepreneur funding it. I don't consciously go and start projects. They just happen. So the answer is I've got no idea what's happening next.
That's very punk. Let's be honest. That's very punk. Excellent.
Well, see, the punks said to us, they said, even though previously you wrote to 80s stars, what you were doing is punk, because you were rejected by the publishers. You went, "Stuff it, we'll do it ourselves," and you're doing it all from your living room. And I'm actually, this new book, I'm proofreading it myself, I'm designing it myself, I'm doing it all from the front room. And they said, "Well, that is a punk ethic. That is punk."
Yeah. Love it. Brilliant stuff. Dave, it's been an absolute joy. Folks, we're going to have links in the show notes so you can check all these out. And like I say, Grammar Free in the UK, you'll be helping a great cause as well. So do check it out.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to say,
Dear
Mr. Popstar, I'm doing the same thing. I'm still going to donate a chunk of every, because
fantastic.
we can. So I thought that's the model for the punk book. I'm only doing this new book via Amazon, so we don't have to worry about printing costs, etc. So I'm doing exactly the same thing here, and we do regular updates on Facebook to say how much we've raised and where it's gone. But it'll always be a homeless charity.
Great. Well, we'll put links in the show notes so you can check all that out, folks. Dave, it's been an absolute joy. Speak to you again soon.
Mutual. Take care. Thanks a lot, Mark.
What are your writing dreams? Finishing that book, quitting the day job, becoming a best-selling author? Well, over 4 years, we've studied the advice of over 300 best-selling authors who've collectively sold over 500 million books. And we are excited to announce the Bestseller Academy. If you're ready to take your writing to the next level with accountability, craft, and coaching, your bestseller dreams are now only a click away. To find out more and apply, visit bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. That's bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. Oh, do you know, I mentioned to you, Mark, earlier, didn't I? When I listen back to the interviews, I'm usually there with my notepad and pen and I'm writing all kinds of notes for the show. I just got so sucked into this interview. I got to the end of it and thought, I haven't written down a thing, because it was absolutely brilliant. And I just, for me, the magic of this interview, and let's just dive straight into it, the magic of it is the fact that this is just a crazy idea that came out of a bit of fun. And Dave just has run with it. Yeah. And it's just developed organically into this incredible project.
I think the thing that became clear is if you sat down to plan this, if I was still at Orion and I said to them, I've got an idea for a book, how about we get in touch with over 300 pop stars, right? Yeah. And ask them for free to contribute to a book and allow us to quote their lyrics and poke fun at them as well. And hey, let's do it all for charity. I would be turfed out of the room. There's no way a publisher would go for it. This, normally we say, oh, this project ticks so many boxes. This doesn't tick any of them. There's scribbles all over the boxes in crayon. Because first of all, you're writing something on spec, which would never happen, certainly not something commissioned by a publisher. You're relying on the cooperation of pop stars. Now, anyone who's had any experience with any kind of pop stars knows the cooperation of pop stars is a bit of an anathema. And, you're doing it for charity. Now, I know publishers occasionally do books for charity, but I know that the accounts department of every publisher goes, oh, please don't do that, because it's so hard. Yeah. It's so hard to do it, the account, because of returns and all sorts of weird things. Oh, yeah. So, this doesn't tick any boxes. So for Dave to run with this and create this and take a spark of something and let it build and build and build and build until what it's become 3 amazing books, and they are so much fun. They're books, the books you can open at any page. And if you're a fan of pop from the 80s and 90s, you're gonna know all these pop stars and you're gonna absolutely love it. To create not 1, not 2, but 3 of these books is just phenomenal, and I take my hat off to him.
Totally. I've got to admit, when I first heard about the project, when we started talking with Dave, I mean, I've got to say, guilty pleasure, and I think I've even mentioned this in the podcast before. Probably one of my favourite artists from the 80s was Nick Kershaw.
Nick Kershaw, yeah.
And I went on, and now I don't know, I always have these weird these brilliant conversations actually with people in North America when we're talking music. And it's so weird because there are some artists that you wouldn't expect any Canadian or American to have ever heard of. And they're like, oh no, they were huge here. And I'm like, really? Oh, were they? And then other artists who were massive in England that I just assumed are worldwide, and they've never even heard of them out here. Now, I don't know if Nick Kershaw made it over in the States, to be honest.
I think he did, but a lot of those 80s bands, the reason they did so well in North America is MTV, because they all made great videos, really, really good videos, and MTV was desperate for content then. Yeah. And, it made Duran Duran, they all went down to, the Bahamas and did Rio on a yacht or whatever. And of course, that was all over MTV.
That was a legendary video, wasn't it?
And a lot of these videos were directed by people like Russell McCaughey, who then went on to make Highlander and other massive blockbuster movies and stuff like that. So they had really good visual directors who knew how to light and make it look cinematic. So MTV just lapped that up. So there was this sort of a new wave of sort of British acts that did massively well in the early to mid 80s because they had good videos.
Yeah. And it was great music. I look back now to the 80s. I mean, even like 2-3 years ago, I went on this weird 80s nostalgia. It's probably around the time we were writing Back to Reality, actually. And I went on this massive sense. I really desperately, I'm sure a lot of people who experience this in their life, whatever age you are, is you get this massive need for nostalgia, and you just want to go back and listen to some of those albums that you listened to when you were younger. And Nick Kershaw was like a constant. Nick Kershaw, Duran Duran, and Aha. I mean, it's who would admit that? But
in the UK, the BBC, I think it's BBC 3 or BBC 4, one of them is constantly repeating Top of the Pops, and they do it in kind of decades. So put any episode from the 80s on, and it's just full of absolute knockout classics. They're just, and there's a bias, obviously, because this was the period when I was growing up. But then I was big into music in the 90s as well. And you watch the 90s stuff, the early 90s wasn't armpit for music. It really, really was. It was coming off the back of rave and stuff like that, and there was some real dreck. We're getting up to it's Top of the Pops 94 now, so you're starting to get some Britpop coming. You're seeing Elastica, early Blur, and you're thinking, oh,
Blur
there's some good
Oasis
stuff on the way, So I know we're going a bit off topic here, but
we're not. It's all about music. I think it's all relevant, isn't it?
But Dave is tapping into it. He's tapping into something
nostalgia.
There, massive nostalgia market, and people our age. Let's be honest, 40s, 50s, got a bit of cash. We want to wallow in that stuff. So it's we're going to be buying these books and having a laugh.
But there's always a lot of musical references in many books. I mean, you take Back to Reality. I mean, every chapter heading's got some kind of hint towards some 90s piece of music, isn't it?
All legally sound, by the way. All legally sound.
We'll talk about that actually in the extended today. But I think there's a very powerful thing that Dave has done here, which we can all learn from as writers, which is if you can tap into something that is really core in someone's life, nostalgia being like, something that's been like almost like the fabric, if you like, the tapestry of someone's youth. If you can tap into that in your writing, you're already ahead of the game because you're making a really incredibly strong connection. And I think a lot of people are very worried about pigeonholing their book into a certain time frame, and they think, when we did have these discussions, didn't we? If you set a book in the 80s or in the 90s, for example, are you missing out on a massive audience of people who are just going to go, oh, it's not even relevant to me? But the point is it's absolutely 100% relevant to a section of the audience. And it kind of takes us back to this idea of, don't be afraid of writing something that is focused on a smaller group of people. In fact, one of the biggest, I think, mistakes a lot of people make is they try to write a book which they think everyone will want and everyone will buy. And I don't think that book exists, because even if you think about it, even the biggest bestsellers, they may have sold millions and millions of copies, but actually as a total number of sales across the entire world population, it's still tiny. It's still a tiny group, really.
And they'll have loads of 1-star reviews as well for people who've gone, what's all the hype about? Oh, this isn't for me, Yeah. But the other, I know you're always looking for a secret sauce, Mr. D. I think the other thing that Dave has done that's very, very clever, it's not just nostalgia, but it's nostalgia with that's sort of poking fun at that era as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's doing it with a lovely sense of irony. Generation X, we're all about irony. We are the ironic generation. So we love to poke fun at it. And we were that generation who did grow up reading smash hits and looking at the lyrics. And I forget what DJ it was. There was a DJ on Radio 1 who used to do a thing about mishearing lyrics in songs as well.
Oh, there was.
Because
yes.
La Isla Bonita did a very good one of, hot potato, blah, blah, blah. So you'd mishear the lyrics. And it was just something we used to talk about because you couldn't just Google it and look it up. You'd have to wait 2 weeks for smash hits to come out or hope that it was in the gatefold of the album. But otherwise, you were trying to figure out what was Nick Kershaw waffling on about,
Absolutely brilliant. I love it. I think that it's also important as well to, and a lot of people have asked this question. It's come up a lot in the coaching, hasn't it, on the Academy, about use of lyrics. And we're going to talk about that because I think a lot of people shy away from touching anything to do with what they think is copyright material. But there's some very interesting rules and regulations around it. Yes. Which we experienced, and we'll give you a teaser, but we experienced when Bestseller Experiment was featured on Fox News a few years ago. You might remember that, Mr. Stay. We'll be talking about that in the extended because that floored us both at the time, and we were like, hang on a minute, they're playing our podcast on Fox News on daytime TV. What is going on? But so if you're interested in learning more about that, stick with us. I think as well from, the thing that blows me away about this project as well is how it developed, not just with, from the genesis, the genius, if you like, of that idea with Dave and his dad. I think that's,
love it.
That for me is the genius. Like talking to your dad about something. I kind of fear it now because I wonder what my child will come to me in a few years going, Dad, check out these rap lyrics or whatever. I don't know, like anime stuff or whatever they're into right now. It's like it's brilliant because there's always that generational divide that can be absolutely hilarious and hysterical.
You want to be the cool dad, don't you? You want to be able to
desperately want to be the cool dad. Yeah.
You want to understand.
We fail miserably.
Well, you realise at a point you think, oh no, that's for them.
Exactly.
That's their thing. And I think there would have been, it's interesting because I was talking to Claire's dad about this, and Claire's dad is, grew up listening to the Beatles and the Stones and stuff grew up in the 60s and absolutely loved it. And his dad was into kind of traditional jazz and stuff like that. And he listened to it and this isn't musicianship. This is terrible. This is a racket. But that divide hasn't been as marked before. My parents listened to the Beatles. I listened to the Beatles. My kids listened to the Beatles. We all did. And the Stones and Floyd and Zeppelin and all that, there's not that big divide anymore, but there are still little niche things that our kids will do and we'll think, What are you doing? What is that about? How do you get any joy out of that?
I've got to admit, for any parents of teens right now, I'm experiencing this with some meme videos on TikTok. Now, maybe I'm going to date myself, but my daughter will show me this video on TikTok and be killing herself laughing. And I'll be watching it going, I have no idea what is going on. I don't know what. There's some obviously very funny reference that they all talk about at school, and I don't get it. It's like, and it's some kind of like new humor, and I'm like, I'm pretty, I do understand humor, but I just watch this and I go, what? It doesn't make any sense to me.
But that's as it should be. I think
exactly.
that's as it should be. Because, when the Goons came along, you go way back in the show like the Goons show, which was the post-war generation, much like the Beatles.
Yeah, my dad would love that.
Yeah, your dad would have loved it, but his dad would have listened to it and gone, this is gibberish. What is this? I don't get this at all. Similarly with Monty Python, the young ones, each generation has its new music, its new comedy, which is, brings us back to punk. Punk had an ethic where it's 3 chords and a manifesto. That's all you needed. In fact, you didn't even need the 3 chords. A lot of bands wrote a manifesto before they even learned to play an instrument. It was just let's do the show right here kind of thing. It had that punk ethic. So and that upset a lot of people, but it also, a whole generation went, yes, that is for me.
Talking of punk, I must admit, and I love the way Dave referred to them as the punks. That's lovely. But did you follow that story that about it was quite surreal, but I believe John Lydon actually entered the Irish
Eurovision Song Contest. Yeah.
Now, it was a heartbreaking story. Did you read the story? It was about, he wrote a song about his dear wife who's got dementia. Yeah. And he'd written this absolutely heartfelt song and desperately wanted to, he was challenged because he didn't have the time to do it, but he also wanted to help people understand more about dementia. So, such an honourable cause. But I just couldn't get my head around John Lydon on
Eurovision.
Wanting to be on. It's just like what?
Yeah, but he was
COVID.
Doing he was doing butter commercials like 10 years ago. So he's sold out a long time as our John.
I've coached people. I actually have coached someone who was on the Eurovision Song Contest, and they came to me as a music coach afterwards to ask for help. Right. But I just think I think it's a beautiful story in many ways because it just shows the kind of evolution of that kind of anarchic time in that youth life. And then, he seems like such a, I don't know him, but he seems like such an incredibly caring, heartwarming, like lovely guy, and
don't get carried away.
No, but when you read the story about how much he cares for his wife and what he's doing, he's looking after her, like he's caring for her every single day.
Well, this is it. We're complex human beings, aren't we? We're not just the thing that we present to the media, are we?
It's what makes the world go round. Absolutely. I absolutely love it. But anyway, folks, if you're interested in diving deep with us this week, because we've got a few more things we want to discuss in the extended. One of the things that I think is really fascinating about Dave's interview is you don't need a million fans to get going, and we're going to talk about the value of a small group of very, very enthusiastic people who can help you any stage of development of your book. And I think every author should have that group. So if you're interested in learning more, we're going to talk about that. Mark, I know you want to chat a bit more about the rights and wrongs of quoting lyrics, because that's something that constantly comes up in the academy, and it's a very important thing. And then we're also going to talk a little bit more about the power of community and how how incredible community can be in terms of helping you through your process of actually getting a book out there. So if you'd like to join us, folks, please pop along to the Bestseller Experiment support page, which is bestsellerexperiment.com/support, and sign up, and we'll see you on the other side. So Mark, social media this week.
Well, Now, if you listen to the extended, this is going to make complete sense to you. If you haven't listened to the extended, this is one of the things that we were talking about. So Karen's story over on the Academy, she says, and ta-da! I now have an author website. She said, having avoided this for over 3 years, after deciding seriously I would work towards becoming an author today, my author website went live. If you read my previous win post, you'll know that I had an apathy towards anything that felt corporate or business-like. My brain would scream, no, I want to be an artist. But she's leaning into the marketing side now and discovering this can be as fun as all the crazy research that she likes to get into. So if you want to check out Karen's website, it's karensstoryauthor.com. I'll put a link in the show notes that you can check that out. She's getting into Instagram as well. She's at StorytellerK on Instagram. And this is, start today, folks. Start putting your flag in the sand when it comes to social media, because your own website, if nothing else, because we can't rely on Facebook anymore. We can't rely on Amazon. They're all laying people off left, right and center. It's all going horribly wrong. So have your own little corner of the internet that is yours. It's so valuable.
Absolutely, and that's brilliant. And I think story it's with a EY, if I remember right.
It is, yes.
Yeah,
that's correct.
That's brilliant. Well, congratulations, Karen. I hope it inspires you. If you've not, there's that thing. That website is often the thing that people put off, and then months, and then sometimes even years can go by, and people think, "Oh, I've never done it." The other flip side of it, of course, is you launch it with all big gusto and excitement, and then 2 months later, you think, "Oh, I haven't put anything on there for a month." And so it's that combination of marrying of those two things, little and often. You're a good example of that, Mark. I mean, you're dropping in posts, there's always something happening on your website. And so
absolutely.
You should check that out as well. If you want a good example of how to do an author website, look no further than Mr. Stay's website. Mark Stay Writes, is it?
Mark Stay Writes, and witchesofwoodville.com as well. So check those out.
So good luck if you're starting a website, and let us know how it goes.
Now, Laura Shepherd on the Facebook group, the Bestseller Experiment Facebook group, topic motivational minutes. Right, so you've only got yourself to blame here, Mr. D. Just listen to the Mark Edwards podcast and heard we might be getting motivational minutes from Mr. D. Yes, please. She says, also, as an aside, every time I hear Mark Edwards on the pod, I think he sounds like such a lovely bloke, sort of person you go to the pub with. And this got lots of likes and replies over in the group. Jeevani Charika said, I used to love the motivational minutes. Mr. Stay making noises while he assumed the position used to crack me up. And Robin Sarti says, there was once a rumour of a book of these. Do you remember that?
I do.
Do you remember that?
It's actually in draft. There's actually a draft copy of it.
Oh.
I know. Just need to find another cloning machine to pop that one out. It will come out eventually. There's a lifetime ambition. Something to look out for.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely to think people. I love to hear that people actually enjoyed those, because that was the thing that we did for people that are new to the podcast. We did. It was like a feature, wasn't it? Every week. I think it was almost every week in the first season. There was this motivational minute, except it was never a minute, because I never know how to keep my words to less than 60 seconds. But okay, here's a promise. Next week, I'll do another one, and we'll see how it goes.
Right.
We'll hold the timer mark and assume the position.
The thing. Oh, not my age, not anymore. The thing is, the motivational minute became the Academy. Really, didn't it? It became the life coaching part of the Academy.
Yeah,
is what it is.
Yeah.
Really.
In fact, it's amazing, because the challenge of trying to put something in a minute. It's really the headline of the idea, and then you can spend a whole hour coaching on it. So you're absolutely right. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
then
finally on social media, this is from Scott R. Morrison on Twitter, talking about how 200 words a day really resonated for me. I write twice a day for 15 minutes during my mandatory break. I'm stoked to read about this approach to writing. I recommend this practice to anyone wanting to break into writing. So 200 words a day, folks. Check it out. This is Mr. D. Tell them about 200 words a day.
It's a free challenge, which is actually underlying. It's a way of you building a writing habit for a lifetime. And it might seem simple, but it has incredible effects long term, as many people are telling us. So pop along to 200wordchallenge.com and sign up today. And the initial challenge is, can you do 7 days in a row of 200 words? And if you can, let us know.
Fantastic. And if you do want to, just a reminder, if you want to support Crisis, which is a charity that helps the homeless in the UK, we've got links to all of Dave and Derek's books in the show notes as well. Dear Mr. Popstar and the Like, and Grammar Free in the UK, and Dear Mr. Kershaw, they're all there. So, you can have fun and put some good into the world as well.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Excellent stuff. And folks, if you want to join our merry band of people receiving our newsletter each week, pop along to bestsellerexperiment.com, click on the contact link in the navigation and just put your name in, and we will send you updates of every episode we do, what you're going to learn from it, and all kinds of other fun news from BXPHQ, as we sometimes call it. Mr. Stay, how can people find us on socials?
Socials
with us.
Yes, while they're still working, when they've been broken up by governments around the world. On Facebook, we're Bestseller Experiment. Twitter and Instagram, we are at BestsellerXP. But, bestsellerexperiment.com is there, will always be there.
Yeah.
And if you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe, rate and review on your podcatcher of choice, because it makes us more visible, helps us get more voices out there. So, and thanks to our editors, Dave and JD, as always.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for joining us this week. It's a goodbye from Mark 1.
And a goodbye from Mark 2. Rock and roll!
Rock and roll. Goodbye.